Brad snapped his fingers loudly in front of the black-clad visitor's face like a servant. "Do you even realize where you are?" he tossed dismissively, looking back at the laughing underlings. But when the club administrator suddenly ran into the hall with a face twisted with horror, and her trembling lips whispered just one last name, all the coach's confidence evaporated in an instant. What happened next changed the balance of power in that gym forever. But let's start from the beginning. The hall was buzzing with the sounds of iron, heavy breathing, and rhythmic music. In this temple of muscle and sweat, everyone was busy with themselves. Some were pumping their biceps in front of the mirror, some were bench pressing the barbell. Jacob Morris wasn't trying to get in anyone's way. Tall, with shoulders that couldn't be hidden even under a baggy t-shirt, he was warming up in the corner, as if he was deliberately keeping out of sight. His movements were precise, measured not like a beginner picking up dumbbells for the first time, but like a man who knows the value of every drop of sweat. But Gold's Gym valued more than technique. It was belonging. And Brad Carter, the head trainer, sensed that right away. Brad loved this gym. He loved the way it smelled of lotion and ambition, the way the newcomers would shy away from his pumped-up torso, the way the girls would stare at his tanned neck, adorned with a chain that read "No pain, no gain." And then there's this guy. Black. Not in a fancy compression suit, but in a ragged t-shirt and simple shorts. No headphones, no pumping in front of the mirror. Just working out. It's like he's at home here. "Hey, you!" Brad snapped his fingers as if to summon a waiter. "New guy, huh?" Jacob raised his head slowly. His eyes were calm, but there was something dangerous in them. "I'm talking to you." Brad smiled broadly, showing perfect teeth. "Do you even know where you are? This isn't a backyard rocking gym." Silence. A few people stopped doing the exercises, sensing the drama. "Are you deaf?" Brad made an exaggeratedly puzzled face. "Or just don't know how to behave in a decent place?" He emphasized the last word, glancing at Jacob's ragged sneakers. The room froze. Someone swallowed. Somebody frowned. No one intervened. And Jacob just stared. No anger. No fear. Like he already knew how this was going to end. Jacob took a deep breath, feeling a hot wave of anger rise to his throat. His fingers clenched involuntarily, but relaxed after a second. He'd been through too much in his life to give in to the provocations of some major trainer. "I just want to practice," he said flatly, looking Brad straight in the eye. His voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. Brad laughed falsely, looking around defiantly, inviting the audience to share in the fun. "Oh, you can talk, too?" He acted theatrically surprised. "Well, since you're so persistent, let's see what you're really capable of." He jabbed his finger contemptuously at the free barbell. 100 pounds. Bench press. Unless, of course, you're afraid you're going to bust yourself. There was a genuine confidence in his voice that this newcomer wouldn't even move the weight. After all, Brad had chosen a load that was impossible for an ordinary person. The silence in the gym grew even deeper. Several people stopped working out, watching the drama unfold. One girl even covered her mouth with her hand. Jacob slowly walked over to the bench. He took hold of the bar and lifted the weight. Lightly. As if it were an empty stick. There were gasps of amazement. Someone even whistled. Brad was stunned for a second. His arrogant smile faded from his face, leaving behind a confused grimace. But in a moment his arrogance was back, now with a touch of anger. "All right. The power's there," he gritted his teeth. "But the technique is atrocious." He poked his finger aggressively in the air, as if catching invisible mistakes. "Back wrong. Elbows wrong. Do you even know what a proper stance is?" His voice grew louder, more sarcastic. He was deliberately humiliating Jacob in front of everyone, trying to regain his sense of superiority. People around him were whispering. "This is too much," muttered a guy at the leg press machine. "Brad, would you stop it?" said the girl with the fitness bracelet hesitantly. But no one dared to intervene for real. And Jacob just tolerated it. It wasn't humiliation in his eyes, but something else. Something dangerous. The door to the hall swung open with such force that several people flinched. Linda, the club's receptionist, stood in the doorway. Her usually immaculate badge was dangling sideways, and a file folder was shaking in her hands. Her dilated pupils and rapid breathing made it clear she was running. "Brad!" Her voice hit a high note, causing even the most stubborn of jocks to break off their approaches. The coach turned around with an annoyed grimace. "What again?" "I'm working out here, in case you haven't noticed." Linda took a step forward, her fingers frantically clutching the folder. "You? Do you know who this is?" She nodded toward Jacob, who was calmly watching the scene with his arms crossed over his chest. Brad snorted, glaring at Jacob defiantly from head to toe, some amateur who doesn't know how to behave in an elite. "It's Jacob Morris!" Linda almost shouted, interrupting him. Her voice echoed around the room. There was dead silence. Even the music from the speakers seemed quieter for some reason. Linda tossed the folder onto the nearest bench, and the sheets flew open, revealing a list of the club sponsors. Her finger, covered in peeling varnish, poked at the top line. "His last name is here. He owns 30% of Gold GYM stock." It was as if the air had been snatched from the room. Brad froze. His jaw dropped so low you could see the filling on the far molar. A drop of sweat rolled down his temple, leaving a wet trail on his tan cheek. His whole body shook, barely perceptible at first, then more violently, as if an electric current were running through it. And Jacob finally smiled. It wasn't an angry or triumphant smile. It was more like a calm, almost friendly smile which made it 1,000 times scarier. He walked leisurely toward the petrified coach, stopping so close that Brad instinctively recoiled. "So what about my technique, coach?" Jacob asked softly. His voice was quiet, but each word fell like a hammer on an anvil. Brad tried to say something, but all that came out of his mouth was an incoherent croak. Brad opened and closed his mouth like a beached fish. His fingers clenched and unclenched convulsively, leaving wet sweat stains on his expensive brand-name t-shirt. The only sounds that came out of his throat were helpless, more like the creaking of rusty hinges than human speech. Jacob watched it with cold interest, like a scientist examining a particularly pathetic specimen under a microscope. "I think," his voice came out softly, but in a way that the whole room could hear, "that you should pack your things." He paused theatrically, savoring the moment. "You're fired." The effect was instantaneous. At first, a sepulchral silence. Then, it was like a dam burst, the auditorium exploded. The applause drowned out even the sound of the falling barbells. Someone laughed, loud, hysterical, relieved. The guy at the receptionist's desk whistled with 2 fingers in his mouth. "Got what he deserved," shouted the red-headed girl from the corner, the same one Brad had made redo the approaches 5 times last week. Brad stood in the middle of this chaos, scarlet with shame. His expensive sneakers that he was so fond of showing off suddenly seemed too tight. The chain that read "No pain, no gain" was suddenly unbearably heavy. He rushed toward the exit, stumbling over his own feet. His shoulder caught the door jamb on the corner, and that was the final humiliation. Even inanimate objects were mocking him now. The door slammed shut behind him, as if it would end the story. And Jacob just went back to his workout. He picked up the dumbbells, took a deep breath, and continued the one arm press as if nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just ruined someone's career. But when he caught his reflection in the mirror, the corners of his lips trembled. Justice is a beautiful thing.